welcome to another Enter the Nerdosphere episode, your official podcast for the Nerdosphere. I am your host, Clayton, joined as always and forever by my brother, Corbin.
What's up?
This week, we discuss the Black Panther. We talk about our thoughts and opinions on the matter, as well as talking about the box office numbers and things like that.
The box office numbers?
The box office numbers.
The box office numbers.
The box office numbers.
The box office numbers.
Remember, we are your number one home for everything in the Nerdosphere, from the silver screen to the small screen, and everything in between. Each week on this show, we dive deep into a topic or just have conversations about topics.
It's true, conversations about topics. Sometimes we dive into topics, sometimes we just talk about what the topic is going to be.
Sometimes
we don't dive into it. We don't really dissect it. We're just like, this is what the topic's going to be.
Well,
I'll see you next time.
Sometimes you just got to, wait around. And then sometimes you got to dive deep.
Like a nice boxed wine.
Right.
In your fridge.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an inside joke. I guess you guys had to be there. It actually happened about an hour ago.
Okay. Let's just jump right into it.
This is a diving in episode.
It's a review episode. Come on, get with it. I just said it.
Sorry.
We're talking about...
Oh, yes, Black Panther.
The Black Panther.
Yeah, we saw that on Thursday and today's. Yeah.
We did. Yeah. We saw an early screening. We have thoughts. Let's talk about numbers.
It's true. Numbers are unbiased.
Numbers are unbiased. As of recording this episode, which is Sunday evening,
yes,
Black Panther has grossed $192 million. And I believe that's domestic.
Da-da-dang.
Yeah, that's pretty sure that's domestic. Or is it international? No, it's got to be international.
Yeah, it's international.
Let's click on it. Oh, yeah. No, that's domestic.
For sure.
192 million for domestic. Foreign market, it's up to 169 million. Worldwide, a total of 361 million out of its first weekend.
It's a juicy haul for February.
It is a juicy haul.
Because February has... Until Guardians #1 came out, February was always a notorious month for just not bringing in a whole lot of money for movies. And then Guardians at the bar, then Deadpool destroyed the bar, and Black Panther apparently just took the bar and threw it into the ocean.
I saw an article earlier that said it doubled Justice League.
Yes.
Come on. I think 50 Shades doubled that. Oh, man. Oh, got him. Okay.
50 Shades is a good movie. Why are you joking about that? I've learned a lot from that franchise. I've learned a lot about myself.
Oh, my gosh. Anyway. All right, before we get into our own opinions and review, we always like to look to Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes to get a feel for what the critics and communities are feeling.
That way we can see where we land.
Right. According to Metacritic, it has a Metascore of 88. This is based on 53 critics. 88 is a score out of 100, so that is a solid B+.
B+.
As for Rotten Tomatoes, it is certified fresh, 97%.
That's for the critics, though.
That's for the critics. Hang on. Just stop. Let me get to it.
Oh, okay.
The reviews counted on Rotten Tomatoes are 296 different reviews. It has an average rating of 8.2 out of 10 for the critics. Now, the audience score is a 76% liked it. However, the average rating is a 4 out of 5 based on 55,000 user reviews.
All right, right on. And then did you do the audience score?
I just did it.
You said it was 76%?
That's literally what I just said.
I wasn't listening. I was waiting for you to say that so that I could say I feel vindicated now on my perspective on the movie. Vindicated. I am selfish. I am wrong.
You literally sat
right.
there.
I swear I'm right. Swear I knew
waiting to say that and sing that, and you missed your cue, and you've now ruined the show.
Spider-Man 3 end credits scene.
The whole show is ruined.
Actually, no, I think it's Spider-Man 2. The Dashboard Confessional song plays. But yes.
So, go ahead. I've been talking a lot. Starts off.
Black Panther.
Stop banging the table. By the way, this is going to be spoiler free for the most part. When we get into spoiler territory, which we always save for the end unless we blatantly tell you up front.
Because sometimes a movie just, our opinions are so ingrained in the DNA of just like the juicy tiddly bits of the film that we have to say.
Like The Last Jedi.
Like The Last Jedi.
So, but in this case, we're actually going to probably talk most of the time about the movie and not have any spoilers. There'll be a little bit at the end, but we'll give you a warning. So,
okay, so for me, Black Panther was just like, it was good. It wasn't great. I felt like it had a super rocky start. It had a lot of exposition, which I understand because we're trying to set up the world. It started out very similarly to like how Thor did, where you have like a narrator and it has some sort of, CGI cinematic explaining some stuff real quickly just so you can get caught up in what Wakanda's all about.
Tells you the lore behind Wakanda and how,
which was cool, but then like it segues into this other scene that takes place in the 90s to have like a setup that's going to pay off later in the film, but it just like the dialogue in that scene to me was just so cringeworthy. It was just like, it was a super bumpy start to a movie that I went in thinking this is going to be the next greatest one.
Right.
And I was like, oh no. I'm pretty sure I looked over at you and I said, uh-oh.
We looked and locked eyes in the movie theater and Corbin goes, uh-oh. And I said, yeah.
And that's kind of the tone that was set for me. It had a couple other good beats. The acting was really, really well done.
The acting was phenomenal. Each actor was just phenomenal. Michael B. Jordan, I think, made good on his promise to do the fans right, for making up for the Fantastic Four. Chadwick Boseman is just, man, I love that dude.
And Michonne,
Denai,
she was awesome.
I can't think of her last name.
Lupita, that other gal, seems to be getting a lot of credit, but
Maz Kanata.
Dion, I think, is the one that stole the show as far as the female characters go. There were a couple of things that I had issues with.
Denai Guerrera.
There was a mechanic used to explain Black Panther tech that was like pulled straight out of James Bond, where like one of the characters essentially plays Q and is just like walking him through the laboratory of like, this is what this does and this is what this does, and it just felt so cheesy, honestly.
And that was a random thought.
I'm going through my opinions on the movie.
I know.
I felt there were a lot of moments in the movie where it kind of felt cartoony. And like there were flashback scenes to Civil War where I'm reminded about how cool these Marvel films can be when they're grounded. And then having that contrasted by this movie, I felt was kind of jarring because it didn't feel like the same. Obviously, it wasn't the same vibe because it was, this was Ryan Coogler and that was the Russo brothers. But I always felt like the Marvel movies have done a good job at feeling cohesive. This one to me was just kind of felt out of place for me. There was no unique great action bits, and that was my complaint for the Guardians films. The plot was generic. The villains were okay. Claw was amazing.
Claw was really good. Andy Serkis did a fantastic job. Again, going back to, they just had a stellar cast.
They really did.
Claw delivered a crazy Claw, literally. And he kind of stole the show a little bit.
I agree.
When he was on screen, it was like you were enthralled.
The one thing I'm not getting is like all of these review commercials. We're talking about like this movie is revolutionary. It's a triumph on every level. It is the best movie you will see all year. Like these, and seeing people regurgitate these thoughts, I'm just like, what movie did you go see? Because I do want to say there are things about the movie that I want to unpack and set aside. This movie is a triumph for women. The women in this movie are like badasses and they're strong female characters. You have a cast that is like 98% diverse.
Mm-hmm.
All African American actors except for like Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
And so, like, to have a movie that can be there for young minorities growing up saying things are changing, I can feel represented in mainstream media, those are great things. And that in itself is a triumph. But those things do not make this movie phenomenal. I want to express my opinions on the movie. There are statements about the movie that are admirable and should be given on a pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm putting that to the side.
Pedestal.
Because I'm here. Because while those are on a pedestal, this movie's on a squatty potty.
Pedestal.
Pedestal.
You said it again. Pedestal. Sorry.
It's a pedestal.
Oh my god.
But what are your thoughts on the movie? I mean,
they're basically the same. I don't feel like this movie felt out of place. Each movie has its own feel, so I'm not really vibing with you on that statement.
That's fine.
Especially when you get to like Guardians and Thor, like those feel completely different than Winter Soldier. So I'm not with you on that. So
and I understand. And I was talking about this with my wife, and it's really hard for me to describe. But like, whenever I watch Guardians or I watch Thor, especially from Thor 1, 2 to Thor 3, those are like vastly different worlds that Thor occupies. I never for once doubted I'm in the MCU. But there was just something...
And you doubted that you were in the MCU here? Like, there's nothing there to keep you from thinking that.
I don't know, it just felt weird. But honestly, it's not just Black Panther. The same thing happened in Doctor Strange. Like, the way that Doctor Strange started, I found, the first time I saw it, jarring. And I was like, what is this? And I didn't feel like it's just hard for me to explain. It was just a feeling that I had.
All right.
Where I was just like, I don't know. But like I said, there were parts about the movie that felt kind of cartoony. A lot of things were just like way too convenient for the plot.
There was a lot of convenient things. I didn't feel like
the stakes were legitimate, and maybe that's where it's coming from, because I don't feel like the other movies are super convenient as far as like payoffs.
Right. Yeah.
And like the way the movie was written.
You know what's unfortunate there though, and I think that this might play into that a little bit, is because we're already seeing a full trailer and we know what's going to happen in Infinity War. We already know that whatever conflict is happening in this movie is resolved in this movie.
Right.
Because we know that, Wakanda is secure. Nothing's wrong. Right. They're helping Cap and everybody take on Thanos. So maybe that plays into it a little bit. You're walking in, and in the back of your mind, kind of like how we were talking when we got out of the movie, you felt like Wakanda, you just couldn't quite believe it. Like you could believe Asgard, like you were able to easily believe Asgard. And I said, well, it's probably because you went into Thor knowing that it's a mythological alien race, so It's easy to accept it for your mind. Whereas Wakanda is hidden on Earth, and you see all this stuff that looks like it maybe should be on some place like Asgard, and it's hard for your brain to like
maybe adjust to like the Triskelion collapse and Wakanda exists.
Right, yeah. So, maybe that's part of it, is that we already know going in to see this movie with not knowing what's going to happen, but we know that everything's okay when Thanos happens. So whatever happens in here, there really are no stakes. Because
well, and I guess like I also feel like for my own mind's sake, I needed more explanations on how things worked. So instead, maybe having a Q sequence where she's going and showing him the gadgets, maybe have an explanation on like how the vibranium tech works. Even like his suit, how it dematerializes and stuff. There's no explanation for what it is. It's just that. And I'm like, you can get away with Star Wars helmet because it's alien tech. But
they do lean on the vibranium quite a lot.
Like it's a special alloy, but it's not like that special.
Well, they use it as a power source. They use it they even say in the movie they weave it into their clothes. Like it's in every aspect of their culture and their technology and their everything. So, but it is strange that like you go from having this special alloy that you could maybe use as a power source and you can build cool things out of it, but how do you get to like nanotech and stuff? And maybe just kind of have to believe that with the jump in technology that having vibranium allowed them to have, that they just were able to develop things a lot quicker, because Iron Man's got that basically now anyway,
right? But
they're way further ahead than even Iron Man as far as technology goes. So
I guess it's easier for me to accept Iron Man because we've literally seen him go from the clunky like machine putting him on to like slowly enhancing his machine to where it does build on him.
Yeah.
But then to just have this like out of nowhere, just be like, psh, and then like, and not have a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it. It kind of irked me where I was like,
again, I think that this is coming from a place of this is on Earth and it's harder for you to accept it. Whereas you watch Star Wars and like, it's cool to figure out, like dive deep and figure out how the lightsaber works. But like when you're sitting in a movie, you're like, well, how'd they do that? You know, like you're not doing that.
Yeah.
So,
and then there are also just like a couple moments where like I felt like the writing was just so shallow where, you know, like oftentimes in a movie they have setups for the third act where they introduce something that's going to be called back for later for the final conflict. But in this movie, when they did that, it was so transparent. It was a conversation between Martin Freeman and, you know, T'Challa's sister. And when they were having that conversation, I was like, oh, that's the final that's the final fight right there.
Right, yeah.
And I was just like, man.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're going over a lot of negatives, but I really like this movie. I will say, though, that the acting is what saved it. And I just said this a little while ago when we were eating dinner and having a discussion with our wives about it. If it wasn't for the superb cast and how good of a job they did at bringing all those characters to life, this would have just been an okay movie instead of a really good movie. Because that's how lacking the overall story was. I was able to empathize with Michael B. Jordan's character, and I felt his anger and frustration at the end of the movie.
Right.
I was able to become enthralled with Claw with Andy Serkis. I was able to just love Chadwick Boseman's portrayal of Black Panther and Denai as the general, and like it was just all really awesome. It was a character-driven movie, and I mean maybe that was the intent, but the overall story, it was just okay.
Yeah.
It was just okay.
And
then when you dive into the comics, which you brought to light in that same conversation at dinner, they didn't need to go the direction that they did with the story. They could have.
We can talk about it in the spoiler part because it's one of my bigger qualms with the movie.
Right.
And maybe it's just easier for me to harp on the negatives only because like everyone is like sucking the butthole of this film. Like people are elevating it to this like. It's not, in my opinion, it is not.
It's not the best.
It's not the best Marvel movie.
That's everything we're saying.
The best movie. It's not anything extra special. It's the same way I felt about Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was a good movie, and there are certain things that are triumphant of the film and like aspects about it, but you have to separate that and actually see the movie for what it is, not the fact that it's a female director and a female lead. And it was just an okay superhero movie. Like I was entertained, but I don't know how many times I'm gonna watch this movie. Yeah. It's kind of the same way for Thor. It's the same way for Thor 3. Like I was entertained by Thor 3,
Guardians 2.
And Guardians 2, but I have no desire to watch them again.
I was sitting here trying to think. This movie is really good, and it's probably better than Guardians 2, and it's better than Thor 3. It's way better than Iron Man 3. Oh man. But this doesn't compare to Winter Soldier, and it doesn't compare to Guardians, which I could literally sit and watch both those movies, and I do sit and watch both those movies. Like that's my go-to movie, like to have in the background or like to fall asleep to or something like that. This movie is not on that same level. It is really good, but people are drinking the Kool-Aid and it's compounding on itself. This is not the best superhero movie.
Like
it's
I read
the
an article
best
today
MCU
where they
movie.
said that
Doesn't take away from the accomplishments.
No, it doesn't.
It's kudos to this movie for the accomplishments that it's made, and we keep saying how good the cast is and how awesome it is for diversity to be represented on this scale, and that all is awesome. Right. But the movie itself, it's just good. It's not great. It's definitely not the best one. And I'm sorry, Kevin Feige, it's not the best one.
I don't know what his deal was when he said that.
I think he just really likes Black Panther because he's been talking about wanting Black Panther for a long time.
He really has. Yeah, I read an article today saying that Michael B. Jordan's character was the best comic villain since Heath Ledger's Joker. It's like,
get out of here. Let's just forget about Loki. Let's even forget about Vulture. I mean,
right. Those two villains are leagues better as far as written and the fact that they are so
Yeah, I mean, it was like I said, because of the acting, it was easy to empathize with Michael B. Jordan, and especially in that final scene with them talking, I felt what he felt.
Right.
Like he did a good job of portraying that, but he was just your typical villain. I mean, there wasn't anything that special about him, unfortunately. But Michael B. Jordan did a great job with the role. But
yeah, Loki is by far the best Marvel villain.
Oh yeah,
hands down.
Mainly because he's the longest lasting, and there's more depth to him than just being a villain.
Right.
Which is another reason why Vulture's probably going to be a really good villain. Because he's probably going to come back. Yeah.
And my last negative was special effects. For ILM to be doing the special effects for Marvel films and to be the creme de la creme of VFX, this, there were so many scenes that just were lazily done. There were scenes where
CGI was definitely lacking.
T'Challa was sitting on a cliffside and it looked like his head was floating because his suit wasn't rendered well. And the cliffside was all fake. I was like,
I was getting ready to say that's where they almost Star Wars prequeled themselves, because if you get,
they're doing CG for the sake of CG.
Exactly. If you get they should have found more on location sites to film this and then add stuff in later. That's where CGI can really flourish. Right. There was too much of, like you just said, it was basically Chadwick Boseman's head floating on what could have only been a blue or green suit standing in a blue or green room. And if Justice League and Batman vs. Superman showed us anything, you cannot do that. It will not look good, and it didn't a lot of the time, unfortunately. I really think also that part of the reason it didn't look good is because of the new suit upgrade, where it takes in kinetic energy and then blows it out, which is a cool idea. I really think that when you take the texture away, when it's glowing, it makes it look that much less real.
Right.
You have to have texture, especially in a CGI image, for it to look good.
Right. Because even in Spider-Man Homecoming, it a lot of times toed the line of not quite being there, because they went the total green suit route.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lesson we learned there, and maybe that's where that cartoony image is coming from in my perception of the world. Is that it might be. I can tell that it's not real,
especially in the third act. It's all green screen.
Right. When
they're in the vibranium cave and the countryside is all the rhinos, everything.
Right.
It's all CG. So they done. George Lucas did up.
They did that. So do we want to dive into spoilers so we can talk about a couple final things, and then just talk about just some things that just need to stop as far as the conversation around this movie?
No, let's not get into that. I don't think we need to get into that.
There's one thing I want to say.
Okay. Why don't you say it now before we
go to the spoilers?
Yeah. Get it out of the way.
Well, have you seen the tweets of the stupid people of being I purposely didn't buy tickets to this movie this weekend because I didn't want to take away from the black joy. When's a good time for me to buy a ticket to this movie? Is next weekend okay?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, little puffball. As I can answer that for you as a comic book fan and an authority figure on the matter. I've been waiting for this movie since Iron Man 2 when they teased Wakanda. Don't ever come to the theater. Stay at home. Stop it. When I saw those tweets,
from a more realistic, grounded point of view, not even a super fan that says, "Why are you even asking that question?" Don't even go buy a ticket. If you want the movie to succeed and be a celebration, you have to buy a ticket. If more people like you hadn't have bought a ticket opening weekend, it would have been deemed probably not a success, especially based on MCU.
Right.
So, can we just
Can we just enjoy the movie?
Can we just enjoy the movie?
Why does it have to be more than that? I don't
let's
understand.
celebrate what it means
just pure celebration, man. Just pure celebration.
Yeah.
Because we've been waiting for this movie. We've been waiting for this movie for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also really happy that Stan Lee got to see it. Honestly, ever since, even before the MCU, back when Sam Raimi was making Spider-Man movies and stuff, every time Stan Lee was asked, who do you want to see made into a movie, he always led with Black Panther.
Yeah, he did.
So it's pretty cool that he finally got to see this.
Plus his cameo in this movie, I think, is his best one.
It was really
I really liked it. All right, so we're gonna jump into some spoiler territory now. Not too much,
Just a few
but
things.
if there will be a couple things that we have to talk about that will ruin a couple aspects of the movie for you. Like we said, it's a pretty straightforward movie, so these spoilers probably won't be a surprise to anybody. But that being said, if you want to go into the movie fresh and clean, pause it here, come back and listen to our final thoughts after you've seen the movie, and I guess let's get into it.
Cool. So one of my biggest qualms as far as the rocky start of the movie is that flashback scene between T'Chaka and his brother in that apartment scene. I felt like the lines of dialogue were super cheesy, and it just didn't flow well. And you had to have that scene to have the payoff later for Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, because he is T'Challa's cousin, the son of T'Chaka's brother, and he was like left and like cast aside, and that's like where a lot of his rage comes from and where the empathy comes from. But all of that felt so forced. And when you look briefly at the comics, Killmonger is the son of an outcasted Wakandan, but it is not T'Chaka's father. So you could have had a similar thing, a similar plot thread of Killmonger coming for the throne, and honestly, you don't have that super bumpy forced throwback, and it could have even been more badass because as a person who's not of royal blood, because when they do the challenge, anyone from any tribe is able to challenge the king. So you could just have this complete outsider just come in, kick ass, take names, and be like, "I'm the king now." What?
Yeah, and once you said that to me, like, it just kind of clicked in my mind how they could have and should have done it. Like, they could have still kind of had that same initial scene, but it would have been more like T'Chaka hunting him down because he's an outsider. He helped Claw get in.
Right.
Like, have it go that route instead of the weird kind of brother thing, and then having the double agent like watching him, and like that was just too much.
It's like Forrest Whitaker's character only existed as a plot device to die. Like that was such a waste of time.
Yeah, he shouldn't have died. And if they would have done it this way, where it was them just hunting down somebody who betrayed the country, they wouldn't have had to have that. Forrest Whitaker didn't have to die for no reason.
Right. I also feel like they should have grabbed more than just one of the herbs, because
now what are you gonna do? They're gonna have to hope that there's natural growing herbs somewhere.
Well, because his T'Challa's sister in the comics eventually becomes the Black Panther, and she obviously is next in line if anything were ever happened to T'Challa. But also you have other villains that I feel like almost need to be elevated. So like, granted, you can't go around just like beefing everybody up, but how cool would it have been to, I forget what his name is in the movies, but in the comics it's Manape. They obviously didn't call him Manape because of the potential racial tones or racial slurs. But how cool would it have been if you left T'Challa sideline for a little bit longer and they did give him the herb, knowing there's other herbs to give T'Challa, and you had him and Michael B. Jordan go head to head for a little bit, and then you have T'Challa come back in. Yeah. But that way,
in the comics, Manape is like, he's actually like Man-Ape, right? Like he's
But like that way, you at least have that character who can stand up to T'Challa. Because with T'Challa having the herb, there's no way that character can be a villain in the future because he's not going to stand up to him.
Right.
So that was just like a fleeting thought that I had, and I was very disappointed with Claw because I was fully enamored with it. He was so bonkers.
Disappointed he had to die, not disappointed in the character or in Andy Serkis.
He was phenomenal. He was so like bonkers and off the wall, but I loved him way more than Michael B. Jordan's character.
Oh yeah,
and he could have just been in so much more. Like you have the talented Andy Serkis on your cast. Like why would you not want him to be there for as long as possible? But two, one of the things I told you guys when we left the theater was it was really cool, I thought, to have a villain who had survived Ultron be in this movie and be a villain. So he has this extra clout where he survived an Avengers villain and he's still going around wreaking havoc.
Yeah,
like that's
and he actually died kind of early.
Well, and stupidly too. But like in a gun battle.
Yeah, so that's a big disappointment.
When he died, I think we both out loud went, "What?"
Well, when they first do it, he dies off screen. Like they're showing Michael B. Jordan, and he pulls the trigger, and you don't immediately think, oh, he's dead. He probably just like shot him again in the leg or something. But then he drags him across the field, and you're like, oh well, he's dead.
Right.
Big disappointment. So
like you could have.
I feel like the MCU, and they've only did it a couple times, really needs to get past this superhero trope of the villain always dies, and because until they do, they're not going to become like the next level thing. Which, I mean, they are, but. You know what I mean.
But what happens is you're going to quickly run out of the great villains. Like
right.
Some of the best stories about villains is how they come back.
Yeah.
Like you can have, some of these movies will end in trilogies, but some of these movies are going to have way more. Like Spider-Man's going to have way more than 3 movies.
Oh yeah.
But can you imagine if every time he had one of his rogues come on screen, they killed him? Like the whole point of that makes a cool villain is them to get defeated and they're sidelined for a while and they come back.
Right.
Like, how are they coming back with their new knowledge, with a new scheme? And it's just like, and the way that, like, even the way that the claw was used in Age of Ultron, you could have had that in other ways. Like, it's about how you utilize that connective tissue amongst other films to make them feel a part of one big thing.
Yeah, how cool would it have been to, like, a couple movies down, they're dealing with something and, like...
Claws, like
the arms dealer in some situation or something like that. Just be cool. And they're like, oh, it's this guy again. And
yeah.
I don't know. It'd just be cool. They're wasting opportunities.
So that really saddened me. And people were like, this movie is like one of the first MCU movies to, stop the villain problem. No, the villain problem is that they die.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like most of the villains are written decently. My problem is that they always die.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a bad MCU villain.
Malekith gets a lot of crap, but I actually like Malekith because his whole point is to just be destructive.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that does it. Like we said, there wasn't much. It's a pretty straightforward movie, so there wasn't much as far as spoilers to talk about.
Just a few details to get out there. I wanted to express.
That has been Enter the Nerdosphere. Be sure to like us, comment, and subscribe. All of our links are in the description below. Check us out on Twitter. Check out our main page on Twitter as well. We tend to retweet stories and news and rumors that we like.
What'd you think?
Yeah, what'd you think of Black Panther? Let us know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll talk to you about it. Be sure to let us know if there's any topics you want us to tackle. And I think that does it.
Coolio, yo.
We'll see you
next time.